Hello and welcome to my thoughts on Siege of the Crystal Empire. If you haven't read it yet, you can watch my video and I'll read it for you. Alright, everyone caught up? Let's go. So, it starts off okay, Mystery Horse walking through the Arctic, and then we cut to Flim and Flam. What a perfect first recruitment stop. Then Iron Will, and then Lightning Dust. It's like, wow, so this is the quality we're going for. But I'm sure Mystery Horse has a good plan. So we finish with a setup and cut to Twilight organizing the Crystal Fair. I guess Twilight's doing it because Cadence wanted help, because I'm guessing it's like the first Crystal Fair since she took over, but that's not important. And Twilight runs into Flim and Flam and gets all mad. It's like, grr, I'm mad. Do you have a permit? So Flim, Flam, Iron Will, and Lightning Dust successfully infiltrate the fair. And the plan is something to do with getting the Crystal Heart. And thank God Mystery Horse went to Chrysalis, because there's no way the other four will be able to do literally anything. I'm pretty sure their entire point was to distract the main characters. But still, Chrysalis could have just done that herself. She has plenty of changelings. But plan's going great. Lightning Dust got the Pegasi away from the city. Bam! Flim and Flam got the changelings and they could have just transformed, but whatever. And Iron Will is in place to snatch up the heart. Everything goes great, and we find out Mystery Horse is actually Radiant Hope, Sombra's best friend. And her goal is to bring Sombra back to take over the Crystal Empire. And this brings us to the end of part 1. Overall, Hope had a pretty decent plan. It paced itself okay. I don't like the cast she brought with, random minor antagonists from literally one episode, with the exception of Flim and Flam. It's like a pretty extreme plan just because they don't like someone. This is straight up treason. Also, it sets up they matter to the plot, but it's besides this literal one thing they're doing, how will they continue to become relevant when the story is clearly going to shift its focus to Sombra? But I guess we'll figure that out in part 2. But, spoiler alert, part 2 is just part 1. So, part 2 kicks off, and we're going over the entire plot of Fiendship is Magic Sombra, which I guess I understand why they need to. It's just annoying because it's literally the entire first half. But it does take the plot of Sombra a little farther to show how Hope developed after Sombra's banishment, which brings us to this current story. So Hope's like, Sombra, I want to help you free the Umbrum. And then he's like, they're monsters. Why do you care? And for some reason, she doesn't think they're monsters, even though literally everyone tells her every chance they get. But props to Hope for keeping her attitude positive and ignoring the facts until she literally can't anymore. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, oh no, Sombra's back. What will he do first? Let's free everyone we just imprisoned so we can have another battle! But at least the outcome was different this time. Everyone got a different matchup, which made them lose. And Twilight, unfortunately, had to face off against Chrysalis and Sombra, which she could not do. It's weird that Hope doesn't help at all, considering this is literally her plan. But I guess she didn't need to. Until Celestia and Luna arrive, hell yeah! And then they literally instantly get petrified. Damn. And in case you couldn't tell, I think part 2 is mostly a waste of time. All it does is tie this series with Fiendship Sombra, which is an important tie that needs to be made. Then they just undid the conflict in the first part, played it again, because they needed Twilight to lose, and then Celestia and Luna don't do anything, and then they lose. And then it's like, oh no, Cadence is the only Alicorn left. I just feel like they could have gotten to that conclusion a little smoother. But with the second conflict, I really did enjoy Flim and Flam's battle with Pinky. It was quite amusing. Also from that battle, I like the part where Pinky and Rarity are getting launched into the cage, and Fluttershy's just there with the cage open, and she's just sitting there going, oh, hi. But that doesn't matter anymore, because now it's part 3, and Cadence is the only Alicorn left. Part 3 starts off pretty good. Twilight, who is presumably the protagonist, and Sombra, who's presumably the antagonist, finally have their first conversation, despite the story being half over. Wow! And Hope seems a little distraught about the petrification of the princesses. We're finally getting character development. So even though Hope seems to want to take over the Crystal Empire for the Umbrum, she doesn't want to hurt any pony more than she has to, which contrasts with Sombra, who wants to immediately remove any threat. And it's like, wow, we're getting somewhere! And then Chrysalis joins in on the anti-Umbrum bandwagon, and it's like, oh, this must actually be bad if Chrysalis is even worried about this. And this is our first actual account of what the Umbrum are capable of. Because before this, we just had whatever the Crystal told Sombra, and whatever Hope saw when she entered the prison, but now we have an actual account from a bystander whose view is uncorrupted by Rabia. Part 3, starting off strong. So now Sombra's feeling a little moody and wants to take a nap without Hope, and Chrysalis flies off to wherever everyone else is, the plaza, I guess. And this is where my fears come true. Flim, Flam, Iron Roll, Lightning Dust, and Chrysalis have nothing more to contribute to the story, and they peace out! So Chrysalis had a really good reason to be here, but the other four, I guess they just didn't, I don't know, they're just there. I don't know why they were chosen to come along on this journey. But before they peace out, Chrysalis sets Twilight free, because I guess she can't be in prison for this part of the story. I don't even know why Twilight's here. And now we get to the important part, the adventures of Cadance and Hope. So Cadance is still chilling in her castle, and she's like, hey, why are you trying to free the Umbrum? They're garbage. And then Hope's like, nuh-uh, they're really cool. Let's go see them. So they go off and see them, and bam! Turns out everyone was right, and Hope was wrong. What a shocker. So this moment when they go to the Umbrum, it's really important to Hope's character, and it's really important to the story. But unfortunately, it just feels like it takes so long to get through it, and it's just really boring, which is a shame. On a side note, I really liked the wordplay with Sombra, the Umbrum, Rabia, and Ira. For those of you not versed in Spanish, Sombra means shadow, and Rabia means rage. And for those of you not well versed in Latin, Umbra means shadow, and Ira means rage. Wow, I really liked the naming convention. Because, like, just before we got here, Cadance finally uses dark magic and closes Sombra's secret basement, and Hope's all like, it's a 2-part spell. So Cadance goes, what's the second part of the spell? You know, and Hope's like, it's rage. Also regarding that scene, why couldn't Hope just teleport to the basement instead of just sitting there going, ah shucks, I guess I'll just sit here and do nothing. But as soon as she leaves the shadow prison realm thing, she immediately teleports to the basement from the Arctic Wastes. It's like, wait, why didn't you just do that earlier? But I guess because we wouldn't have had character development. But also because we needed time for Twilight to break free of Sombra's crystally magic preventy spell so that she could show up just in time to beat the shit out of him right when he's having a change of heart. And thus, we finally learn Twilight's important role in this story. Everything has been culminating to this exact moment. And now her job is done for the rest of the story. And now part 3 comes to a close. And it's probably my favorite of the 4 parts. Because, you know, even though the adventures of Cadance and Hope was a little boring, the rest of the story was so much better in comparison to the previous 2 parts. We actually got development. We finally understand why Hope is doing things. We got some insight onto how Sombra is feeling about this. We learned the stakes of releasing the Umbrum. And, you know, even though this is Twilight's only important role in the story, we don't know that going into part 4. So I feel like that doesn't take away from it. And now we enter part 4, the conclusion to the story, and I still have no clue who the protagonist is supposed to be at this point, because it doesn't feel like it's supposed to be Twilight. And that's because it's been secretly Sombra this entire time. Even though he didn't have anything to do with part 1, and he was kind of antagonistic in part 2, he got that little bit of dialogue at the end of part 3, and now part 4 is all about him. And it's kind of weird because we're now nearing the end of the story, and Sombra has had almost nothing to do with the rest of the story, and the only time he actually has regular conversations is with Hope, because anytime anyone else is around, he's the bad guy. So if Sombra's gonna have any kind of character development here, it's gotta be fast. And wow, once again, Twilight has been captured, and conveniently all of her friends fled, so now she has no way to break free of Sombra's spell. Twilight, being the smart pony she is, knows she needs to stall for as much time as she can until reinforcements arrive. So now with this new plan, Sombra heads up to tell Hope what's going on, and she's just sitting there pouting. So this scene shows off Hope's motivations, and they're kinda weird, because she's totally down with taking over the Crystal Empire. That's fine, that was always the plan. But she doesn't want to go out and take over the rest of Equestria. She just wants to chill there with Sombra. But, Sombra wants to take over everything. So even though Hope just starts bitching at Sombra for this scene, it's a really good scene. We finally figure out exactly what Hope is wanting from this, and what she says really makes an impact on Sombra. He had never thought of anything beyond fulfilling his destiny, but then Hope's just like, "You don't gotta follow your destiny, Sombra! God!" And finally, Twilight's friends have come to save the day, and now the third conflict of the series begins. I don't know why the Umbrum let it go on for so long, but then they finally decide to use their magic and end the battle. Good plan, Rabia. And once again, Pinkie Pie carrying this battle with her amazing speech. You know what was just as epic as Pinkie's speech? The Cutie Mark Crusaders tank unit. Even though it was really, really dumb, you just can't not love it. So now Hope, just wanting to end everything, comes up with the great plan of just destroy the Crystal Hearts. That'll fix all the problems. But as soon as she gives it to Sombra, he just puts it right back in the dais. Just a reminder, Hope had the heart in her the entire time, and if she wanted to, she could have ended this whenever. And now we have this really sweet ending of Sombra saying goodbye, and how much Hope meant to him, and how she helped him realize he didn't have to be a monster if he didn't want to. It's a fine ending and all, I don't have any problems with it. It's just, there wasn't much shown as to why Sombra would suddenly make this decision. The story didn't do a good job of setting up Sombra to take this position. It just happened. And this is where the problems with the first two parts come in. We spent so much time, from Twilight's point of view, fighting against Sombra, when we should have been sitting with Hope and Sombra developing their characters. But we just had battles for the sake of having battles. It's like the writer had a concept for the plot, but couldn't figure out a way to make it last for 4 issues. So we just had 3 fights, and a flashback. Ultimately, the story just didn't build up well enough. Part 1 was paced pretty well. I think it's a pretty good setup for a 4-parter. But then, nothing happens in 2. And then, a lot of things happen in 3. Comparatively, not quite enough to carry the rest of the story. And in 4, Hope just yells at Sombra, and it's enough to change his mind. Twilight definitely could have been utilized better. Like I said before, I think the premise of the plot is decent enough. Sombra just doesn't get enough development to warrant the change of heart. But on a hopeful side, Sombra is now a good guy in this continuity, so maybe he shows up in a later comic to save the day. Who knows? And that was Siege of the Crystal Empire. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments, and until next time.